Nanalo ng Countino Team Hontiveros ng 200,000 pesos.
Family Feud, 5:35 p.m.
Nanalo ng Family Feud ng Team Clash kada ng 200,000 pesos.
Family Feud, 5:35 p.m.
Welcome to my episode that is called
That's okay.
Rescuers call for survivors under a collapsed building in Cali, Colombia, after a powerful 7.4 earthquake struck on Monday, killing more than 100 people. Dozens of buildings collapsed, and authorities say more people remain trapped. The quake was felt across Colombia and in neighboring Venezuela, which is still recovering from devastating twin earthquakes in June that killed more than 6,000 people. Our Andean Bureau Chief, Julia Sims-Cobb, is in Bogota.
It unfortunately struck near an area of Colombia that has a lot of mountains, a lot of rivers, and just had an epicenter where damage was more likely, unfortunately. So the areas that are most heavily damaged so far are in Western Colombia. That's the city of Cali, which is Colombia's third largest city. There's also damage reported in Chocó, which is on the Pacific coast.
The disaster comes just days after Colombia's new president, Abelardo de la Espriella, took office. But Julia says his government has sprung into action.
It does seem so far like the response has been better coordinated by local and national authorities. We're already seeing in Cali huge heavy machinery moving some of the debris as part of rescue operations. That was something that in Venezuela people were begging for. And that took days and sometimes weeks to arrive, if it arrived at all in certain buildings. But we're already seeing that kind of machinery operating in Cali, and local authorities do seem to have coordinated very well so far with national authorities. So there's been firefighters, especially on the ground since the first moments after the quake, and as well as civil defense and other disaster response authorities.
In the US, President Donald Trump has signed an executive order cutting the number of recommended childhood vaccines.
They have a vaccination that looks like the size of a bottle of soda.
The order also calls for splitting the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine into 3 separate shots given at different visits. Public health experts are raising the alarm, saying the immunization schedule was based on decades of evidence showing that the vaccines could protect against serious illness and death, and that the number of shots reflects the specific needs of Americans. President Donald Trump is demanding Iran pay compensation for what he calls decades of killings, a call which is threatening negotiations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran had signaled progress on a deal with Oman to reopen the waterway, but says the US must first pay compensation for strikes and lift sanctions. Oil prices, which had risen earlier on the Iranian comments, extended gains after Trump's post. For more on the market reaction, here's Morning Bit host Mike Dolan.
Oil prices on the rise again this morning, coming very close to that $90 a barrel level for Brent crude at least, and even physical crude is as high as $100. Not much happening in the talks between Iran and the United States. They seem very far apart on their negotiations, such as they exist. Their demands certainly seem very far from what either side would agree. The market can see that, and not just the energy market. This is affecting the interest rate markets as well in a big week for the US inflation report and the Fed meeting next month. The 30-year Treasury yield is hitting its highest in almost 20 years.
You can listen to Morning Bid wherever you get your podcasts. In one last bit of Trump news, several media outlets are reporting that the US president secretly took a military flight when he left the NATO summit in Turkey last month, prompted by an Iranian threat. The Washington Post reports that Trump was put in a catering container as a decoy. Trump had taken the new Qatari-donated Air Force One to Ankara, but the White House then unexpectedly announced he was departing the country on the older model, a move that prompted questions about the newer plane's security. Voters head to the polls for primary elections today in Connecticut, Minnesota, Vermont, and Wisconsin. And there are special primary votes in Alabama and South Carolina, too. The Democratic primary for the governor of Wisconsin will pit moderates against a Democratic socialist, Francesca Hong, who's taken a sizable lead in the polls. And in South Carolina, Republicans will pick a replacement for Senator Lindsey Graham, who passed away unexpectedly last month. His sister, Darlene, was appointed to fill his seat as interim senator and is now seeking a full term. And while Trump endorsed her, she faces a crowded field. Turkey's parliament has passed a law laying out how members of the outlawed PKK will rejoin society as the group disbands. It's a major step toward ending a decades-old conflict between the government and the Kurdistan Workers' Party. The legislation offers legal protections for some former militants. The insurgency has killed more than 40,000 people, and supporters hope the move could bring a lasting peace to Turkey's southeast. Criminal fraud and bribery charges against Indian billionaire Gautam Adani have been dismissed by a judge in New York. The judge said he was satisfied that Adani's previous pledge to invest $10 billion in the US was not a factor in the Justice Department's decision to abandon the case. But he still criticised what he called irregularities in the process, saying a senior Justice Department official worked directly with Adani's lawyers to secure the dismissal without input from many of the prosecutors and agents who investigated the case. Taiwan is preparing once again for a possible Chinese attack. Every year, the island nation holds several days of war games with the military, and it tries to prepare civilians too. This year, that meant restricting access to the internet for the first time. Taiwan Bureau Chief Ben Blanchard headed to Taichung train station for the drill.
Taiwan deliberately slowed the mobile internet, simulating a scenario either during an extreme natural disaster or, in worst case scenario, a Chinese attack, trying to get people used to the idea, albeit only for about 30 minutes, of what they would do without living with the mobile internet. Now, during this drill, which was also combined with the annual air raid drill, the air raid siren sounded at 2:30 in the afternoon, forcing people off the roads, making people seek shelter inside. Everybody inside the Taichung train station here in the central city of Taichung was trapped inside it. Taiwan is doing this as part of its overall resilience preparations, something the government has really set great store on as it tries to get people to prepare for the possibility of something very bad happening. Now, Taiwan has been taking lessons, in particular from countries like Ukraine, which has been dealing with the Russian invasion, about exactly how it would continue to operate during the event of any kind of Chinese attack.
Famed English soccer team Liverpool is close to adding a big new minority owner. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is reportedly joining an investor group seeking to purchase a 1/3 stake in the club from the current owners, Fenway Sports Group. Sports reporter Alan Baldwin says it's part of the changing face of ownership in the English Premier League.
The Premier League is booming. It has a lot of foreign investors, and the club valuations are just growing ever greater. Liverpool is now valued at about $6 billion. It doesn't mean that Jeff Bezos is necessarily in it to get a return on their investment. This is obviously making a big headline because Liverpool are one of the biggest clubs in English football. And not just that, they're a global brand. They have supporters all over the world, and they are one of the most successful clubs in the Premier League. One can see why the likes of Jeff Bezos would want to be involved with Liverpool, regardless of the football as well, because of the potential in terms of marketing brand value.
For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
That's it for your news updates. To see more stories, open Google News.